Hey guys, welcome back to RPO Restorations. I'm going to be continuing some work on the Blazer today. Today I'm going to walk you through the somewhat complicated procedure on bleeding the brakes with this Kelsey-Hayes four-wheel anti-lock brake system on the car. Those of you that saw the first video, include a link up top, I replaced the master cylinder. I also replaced the brake pressure and modulator valve, or the entirety of the ABS unit. Then off camera, I decided to replace every brake line in the truck, as well as the front calipers, pads, rotors, and rear wheel cylinders. So obviously I got a lot of air in the system. I'm going to have to bleed this system out. Now there is a rather complicated bleed procedure for these trucks, and I think a lot of people don't know about it. That's why they get stuck with this spongy brake pedal and have a reputation for having weak brakes. But today I'm going to show you the proper procedure and the specialty tools you're going to need, and we'll go ahead and knock it out. So let's get started. Okay, so today we are going to be following the revised four-wheel anti-lock brake system bleeding procedure. This is a GM technical service bulletin published in May of '93. The number is 93-5E-74 for those of you that care. We are going to need a couple of specialty tools for this. It really does help if you have access to a GM Tech 1A scan tool to cycle the valves in the anti-lock brake unit. If not, there's an extra step you have to take, but I'll point that out when the time comes. You are, however, definitely going to need at least two of these. This is OTC tool, part number 7853, a GM valve depressor for the proportioning valves. You'll have to attach two of these before you get started, and we'll get to that in a minute. But just keep in mind that without this tool, you will not be able to get all the air out of your system. You will have some trapped in your anti-lock brake unit or the BPMV. So you will definitely need these to do a proper job of bleeding the brake system of any air. So first step, we're going to attach two of these. There's a couple of nuts we have to crack on the BPMV. I'll show you where those are, and then we'll bleed the brakes like normal. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing we have to do, and I have my old unit up here, we have to attach these to the tops of the two pistons. They are covered by a rubber cap. You see, you loosen up this wing nut, this will slide on, and you have to make sure that this piece is being depressed here. I think the one on this unit's pretty much frozen up, but just to give you an idea where they need to go, you would slide this over here. Now I'm going to go ahead and do that on our functioning, or hopefully functioning, unit now. Now that we've got our valve depressors attached over here on our functioning unit, we have to crack the two bleeder nuts, which are located on the sides of the unit. And just to give you an idea where those are located, they're located right here. There's one on each side. You have to crack them open. Only crack them open about a quarter to a half turn. I'm going to do it a third. Anything further than that, you're going to be letting too much air in the system. So just make sure you crack them only about a quarter to a half turn, and then you can move on. All right, now that we've got that completed, we can go ahead and start bleeding the brakes like you normally would. I'm going to be doing manual bleeding, and I should have stressed that in the beginning, but if you're using a pressure bleeder or any type of one-man bleeding system with a vacuum pump, there's an extra step you got to take. You're going to need an extra one of these valve depressors to press down on the proportioning valve back here. There's another piston location for it. So if you are using a pressure bleeder, make sure you do that. I'm going to be using just the regular pedal method because I only have two of those. So we're just going to bleed like we normally would, starting at the passenger rear, moving over the driver's rear, passenger front, and driver's front, like you normally would. So let's go ahead and take care of that, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, once you've gone ahead and done that, at this point, if you have a GM Tech 1A scan tool, you're going to want to go ahead and put your brake cartridge and adapter in, get it all hooked up, then remove the two depressors from your BPMV, close those bleed valves, run through 6 function checks to purge all the air out of the anti-lock brake system. If you don't have a GM Tech 1A, leave everything hooked up. You'll notice 2 bleeder valves on top of the unit. You want to go ahead and bleed those like you normally would. Once you're finished that, remove everything, close those 2 valves off on the side, and remove your hoses. After that, there's only one more step, and we're done the process. Okay, so at this point in the game, you should have conventionally bled your Blazer or Yukon's brake system like you normally would. You should have then either cycled it 6 times with the GM Tech 1A scan tool, at which point prior to that you should have removed the 2 valve depressors from the BPMV. If you're bleeding your BPMV the conventional way, you want to go ahead and close those 2 nuts off on the side first, then close off your 2 bleeder tubes, and then remove your depressors. So at this point now we've done all that. It'd be a good time to hit that subscribe button, or maybe like the video, I'd appreciate it. But now for our third and final step, you're going to do another full-on conventional bleeding of your braking system, starting with your right rear wheel, moving on to the left rear, then front right and front left. This method, and it is the factory approved method, does use a lot of brake fluid. If you're doing it right, you're going to run through at least 2 or 3 quarts easily, so plan ahead for that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and conventionally bleed these brakes and then wrap it up. All right, so once you finish that second conventional brake bleed, you should have a nice firm brake pedal after that. If you don't, guess what the TSB says to do? Repeat the process all over again. So have fun with that. But I hope you learned a little bit about these Kelsey-Hayes brake systems used on a lot of GM ABS trucks, and getting them to bleed properly and get your brake pedal where it should be. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one, guys.